Ma'am, did that radio key survive the Civil War? Petty Officer Ryan Cole said it loud enough for the communications room to hear, and the laughter moved across Raven Point like a small current through clean wiring. Lieutenant Claire Morgan stood beside the main console at 12:47 in the morning, one hand resting on a small analog radio key made of dark metal, the kind of tool most of the younger operators had only seen in training photographs. Around her, encrypted tablets glowed on polished tables. Satellite maps stretched across the main wall. GPS convoy trackers moved in neat green lines over the Nevada desert. Every system in the room looked modern, fast, and certain. Claire did not look at Ryan first. She looked at the signal board, then the clock above it, then the old emergency frequency panel mounted near the side wall, like something the building had forgotten. She was 33, white, calm, and striking in a way that came from discipline more than attention. Her dark blonde hair was tied back tight. Her gray-blue eyes were steady, and her Navy tactical uniform was pressed clean under the cold blue monitor light. On her left sleeve was a badge most of the room did not recognize, a silver hawk flying through dark blue radio waves. It caught the light each time she moved her arm, not flashy, not decorative, just present. Commander Ethan Brooks stood near the center table with a tablet in one hand and a headset resting around his neck. At 42, Brooks had the face of a man who trusted procedures because procedures had carried him through long nights. He was sharp, controlled, and respected by his team. He was also looking at Claire's radio key as if it had arrived from another century. "Petty Officer Cole," he said, not quite reprimanding him. "Focus on the convoy check." Ryan turned back toward his screen, still smiling. "Yes, Commander." Claire placed the analog key beside a folded paper map and an older headset with a cloth-wrapped cord. The movement was quiet, but in that room it sounded almost defiant. Ryan glanced back. "Seriously, ma'am. We have encrypted satellite voice, convoy GPS, drone relay, and 2 redundant digital channels. What exactly does that thing do?" Claire finally looked at him. It survived silence. The room grew still for half a second, then someone near the rear console gave a low laugh. Ryan shook his head. "That is poetic, ma'am, but we are not writing letters to the desert." Claire did not answer. She adjusted the analog headset, checked the tension of the key, and made a small note on the edge of her paper map. Brooks watched her with restrained impatience. "Lieutenant Morgan, your role tonight is advisory. Convoy 3 is on a standard long-range training route, 42 miles east of base. We are not expecting communications trouble. Trouble rarely asks to be expected," Claire said. Brooks held her gaze. "We reacquire signals here. We do not guess at them." "Good," Claire said. "Then do not guess that silence means empty." Outside the communications room, the Nevada desert lay black and wide under a hard winter sky. Convoy 3 was out there somewhere on a training route between dry ridgelines and service roads, moving through a landscape that swallowed sound and punished arrogance. Inside Raven Point, every screen remained green. Every tracker blinked with confidence. Every operator believed the system could find anything that mattered. Claire rested 2 fingers on the analog radio key and listened to the quiet before anyone else knew it had changed. At 12:52 in the morning, Convoy 3 was still a clean green icon on Raven Point's main wall, moving east through the Nevada desert along its assigned training route. The room had settled back into procedure after Ryan Cole's joke, but the joke had left its shape behind. Operators glanced at Claire Morgan's analog radio key the way people glance at something old they do not want to respect too quickly. Claire stood near the side console, not offended, not entertained, simply present. Her folded paper map was open now, marked with route lines, dry wash crossings, elevation notes, and 2 emergency relay points drawn in pencil. She traced one ridgeline with her eyes, then looked at the satellite overlay on the main screen. The digital route was cleaner than the terrain deserved. That bothered her. Commander Ethan Brooks stepped closer, his tablet glowing against his uniform. "Lieutenant, Convoy 3 is reporting stable speed, stable location, and clean comms. What are you looking for on paper that we do not already have?" Claire looked at the map, then at the screen. "Friction." Brooks frowned. "Friction? Real terrain has it. Screens remove too much of it." Ryan turned in his chair with a half smile. "The screen is supposed to remove clutter, ma'am." Claire nodded. "Clutter is where people disappear. The line made Ryan look away first. Brooks studied her for a moment, trying to decide whether her calm came from experience or stubbornness. You have worked dead zones before. It was not a question. Claire adjusted the cloth-wrapped cord of the analog headset. A few. Satellite gaps? Sometimes. Jamming. Sometimes. Equipment failure? Often enough. Brooks waited for more. Claire gave him nothing else. That silence seemed to irritate him more than resistance would have. He turned back toward the center table. All right. Convoy check in 2 minutes. Cole, confirm encrypted voice. Nash, confirm GPS trail and drone relay window. Ryan answered. Encrypted voice is good. Trevor Nash, seated 2 stations down, added, GPS trail solid. Drone relay expected in 8 minutes. The room sounded healthy. Keyboards moved. Headsets clicked. Data refreshed in clean green. Claire put on the analog headset, but she did not activate the transmitter. She listened to the open static bed beneath the digital systems, faint and uneven, like wind under a closed door. Ryan noticed. You are listening to noise now. Yes. On purpose. Yes. He gave a quiet laugh. That is commitment. Claire placed one finger lightly on the radio key. Noise is only noise until it repeats. Brooks looked over his shoulder. Lieutenant, do not transmit on emergency analog unless authorized. I will not. Good. I am listening. The convoy icon blinked once on the wall display. No one reacted. It blinked again, then resumed its green movement across the map. Trevor Nash checked his station. Minor GPS packet delay. Corrected. Brooks nodded. Log it. Claire's eyes shifted to the paper map. The convoy had just entered a stretch between 2 low ridgelines 42 miles east of Raven Point, a shallow basin where radio signals could bend, thin out, or vanish depending on weather, equipment, and bad luck. She marked the position with a pencil dot. Ryan saw it and sighed. Ma'am, the system already logged that. Claire did not look up. The system logged where it thinks they are. Ryan opened his mouth, then closed it when Brooks raised one hand. The commander was done with jokes, but not yet ready to believe her. On the main wall, Convoy 3 continued forward, green and confident. In Claire's headset, beneath the static, something tapped once, too faint for certainty, too deliberate for comfort. She held still. The room kept trusting the screen. Claire kept listening to the silence. At 12:58 in the morning, the first real silence entered the room wearing the shape of a green icon. Convoy 3 was still visible on the main wall, still moving along the assigned training route, still labeled stable by the digital system. But Claire Morgan had stopped trusting the label. In her analog headset, the faint tapping came again beneath the static. Not words, not a clear call sign, just a broken rhythm, spaced by human intention, then swallowed by noise. Claire pressed one finger beside the radio key, but did not transmit. She closed her eyes for half a second, not to dramatize the moment, but to remove the glow of the screens from her thinking. Tap. Pause. Tap, tap. Longer pause. She opened her eyes and marked the pattern on the edge of the paper map. Petty Officer Ryan Cole noticed the motion. You are writing down static now. Claire kept her voice low. No, I am writing down effort. Ryan turned to Commander Ethan Brooks with a look that asked permission to dismiss her again. Brooks did not give it this time. He was watching the convoy icon. Nash, confirm last voice contact. Trevor Nash checked the log. Convoy 3 checked in at 0054. Clear voice, no abnormal report. Ping them again. Ryan sent the command through the encrypted channel. The room waited. The screen displayed a clean request line, then a delay, then a response flag that looked almost normal. Ryan frowned. System shows ping returned. Claire looked at the analog clock. Voice. Ryan tried the channel. Convoy 3, Raven Point, radio check. Static answered through the digital speaker, smooth and empty. He tried again. Convoy 3, Raven Point, radio check. Nothing. Nash leaned closer to his monitor. GPS trail still active. Claire pointed to the wall display. It is too smooth. Brooks looked at her. Explain. That stretch of basin has washboard terrain and 2 hard turns around low ridges. Their speed should breathe. Breathe. Slow, correct, drift, recover. Real drivers do not move like a cursor. Nash zoomed the route. The green icon slid forward with perfect confidence. Ryan's expression tightened. Could be predictive, Phil. Claire looked at him. Then you are not tracking them. You are watching a guess. The room cooled. Brooks stepped to the center table. Disable predictive overlay. Nash entered the command. The convoy icon held for 1 second, then froze. A yellow notice appeared beneath it. Live position unavailable. For the first time that night, the system admitted what the analog headset had already known. Ryan sat back, his face losing color under the blue monitors. Signal lost. Brooks did not raise his voice. Reacquire through satellite. Nash worked fast. Attempting. Drone relay. Not in window for 6 minutes. Backup encrypted voice. Ryan tried, listened, then shook his head. No contact. Claire heard the tapping again. Weaker now. As if someone far beyond the neat green map was trying to push a message through stone, sky, and bad timing. She turned the analog headset volume by a fraction and placed her hand over the radio key. Brooks saw it. Lieutenant, not yet. Claire looked at the paper map, then at the frozen icon, then toward the dark glass beyond the operations room where the desert waited without caring what the screens believed. Commander, she said, your convoy did not vanish when the system said it did. Brooks held her stare. Then when? Claire marked the last real terrain point with her pencil. 4 minutes ago. Ryan looked at the frozen screen, then at the old metal key beside her hand. No one laughed. The room was finally listening, but the desert had already started speaking first. At 1:03 in the morning, Raven Point stopped sounding like a training room and started sounding like a place where every second had weight. Commander Ethan Brooks stood at the center table, one hand on the edge of the map display, his voice controlled but stripped of comfort. Run full reacquisition. Satellite first, then tower relay, then drone window as soon as it opens. Trevor Nash answered without looking away from his screen. Satellite reacquisition in progress. GPS trail unavailable. Predictive overlay disabled. Petty Officer Ryan Cole switched between channels, his earlier humor gone. Convoy 3, Raven Point, radio check. Convoy 3, respond. Only static came back, smooth on the digital channel and rough in Claire Morgan's analog headset. She listened to both at once, because the difference mattered. Digital static sounded empty. Analog static had texture. It carried weather, terrain, distance, and sometimes, if someone still had discipline, a pulse. Tap. Pause. Tap, tap. Longer pause. Claire marked the rhythm again on the paper map. Brooks saw it. You are still hearing it. Yes. Could it be interference? Interference does not keep trying the same way. Ryan turned from his console. Or it is random noise, and we are losing time. Claire looked at him, calm enough to make his frustration look younger than it was. No. We already lost time by trusting a moving icon. Ryan lowered his eyes, but only for a second. He was scared now, not ashamed enough to be useless. Brooks stepped beside Claire. What do you need? She pointed to the old emergency frequency panel on the sidewall. Analog receive open, low-band field emergency range, no digital filtering. Nash glanced back. That panel has not been used for a live convoy drill in years. Claire adjusted the headset over one ear. The convoy has not been missing in years. Brooks looked at the frozen green icon on the main wall, then at the dark desert beyond the reinforced glass. Convoy 3 was 42 miles east by the last trusted mark, maybe more now, somewhere among dry washes, ridgelines, service roads, and radio shadows. This was still a training environment. No one was describing danger in dramatic words. But everyone understood that a missing team in the desert at night did not become safer while people debated tools. Brooks made the call. Open the analog panel. Ryan hesitated just long enough to show the old bias still fighting him, then moved. Opening analog receive. A lower layer of static filled the room's speakers, rougher and more human than the digital silence. Several operators looked uncomfortable, as if the room itself had become older. Claire placed the analog radio key on a small rubber mat beside the panel and unfolded a second section of her paper map. The Silver Hawk badge on her sleeve caught the blue light when she reached for her pencil. Brooks noticed it again, the silver bird cutting through radio waves. What is Silver Hawk? He asked quietly. Claire listened through a burst of static before answering. A promise that silence would never get the final word. Ryan looked up from the panel. That is not a unit designation. No, Claire said. It is a responsibility. The tapping returned, faint but persistent. This time the room heard a fragment of it through the speaker. Tap. Pause. Tap, tap. Nash stopped typing. Ryan froze with one hand near the channel control. Brooks looked at Claire. That is them. Claire's face stayed still, but her eyes sharpened. That is someone trained enough not to waste breath. She placed 2 fingers on the radio key, waiting for the rhythm to finish before she answered. She did not transmit yet. She counted the pause, checked the map, checked the clock, and let the silence complete its sentence. Then she said, "Commander, if you authorize me, I can call them back." Brooks looked once at the screens that had failed to find his convoy, then at the small dark key that everyone had laughed at less than 20 minutes earlier. Authorized. The word changed the room. Claire leaned over the analog panel, her expression steady, her hand poised above the metal key. The desert had spoken in fragments. Now she was about to answer in a language the machines had forgotten. The authorization settled over the communications room like a door closing behind doubt. Claire Morgan did not rush. She lowered the analog headset over both ears, adjusted the old receive level by a fraction, and placed her right hand above the dark metal key. Every operator in Raven Point watched her now, but she did not perform for them. She listened past the room, past the glow of tablets, past the failed satellite map, past the frozen convoy icon still sitting on the wall like a lie that had finally stopped moving. The static came in layers. Wind across open desert. Distance. Terrain shadow. Equipment strain. Then, beneath all of it, the faint rhythm again. Tap. Pause. Tap, tap. Longer pause. Claire closed her eyes for one breath and counted it against the analog clock. It is not a distress call, Ryan Cole said quietly, more to himself than to anyone else. It is a marker. Claire opened her eyes. It is a door knock. Commander Ethan Brooks stood beside her, tense and silent. He was close enough now to see the penciled notations on her map, the dry basin east of Raven Point, the low ridgeline marked in gray, the service road that curved south before vanishing between 2 elevation lines. "Can they hear us?" he asked. "If they are still listening. And if they are not." Claire rested 2 fingers on the key. "Then we give them something worth hearing." She began to transmit. The sound was small, metal tapping against contact, simple enough that Ryan once would have laughed at it again. But in that moment, it filled the room with more authority than any digital alert. Claire sent a short Silver Hawk authentication pulse, paused, listened, then sent the second half. No classified pattern appeared on any screen. No complex data stream rolled across the wall. Just a disciplined rhythm moving through an emergency frequency old enough to be ignored and strong enough to remain. Static answered. Then nothing. Nash whispered. No response. Claire lifted one hand slightly, asking the room for quiet without looking away from the panel. 5 seconds passed. 10. The static shifted. A faint double tap returned, almost lost in noise. Ryan leaned forward. "I heard that." Claire nodded once. "So did I." She transmitted again, slower this time, shaping the rhythm around the terrain delay. Brooks watched her hand and understood that this was not nostalgia. It was skill translated into patience. She was not guessing. She was reading distance and distortion, response and weakness, discipline in a sound everyone else had called noise. The speaker cracked. Static rolled through the room. Then a voice came through, thin but clear enough to freeze every operator in place. "Raven Point, this is Convoy 3. We read Silver Hawk." No one moved. Ryan's mouth opened slightly, but no joke came out. Nash stared at the analog panel as if it had become alive. Brooks turned from the speaker to Claire, and the skepticism left his face in one clean piece. Claire pressed the transmit switch with measured calm. "Convoy 3, Raven Point reads you." Hold voice short. "Confirm status and nearest terrain marker." The reply came back broken, but steady. "Team accounted for. Digital comms down. Near dry wash south of Twin Ridge marker." Claire marked the location on the paper map before Nash could type it. She pointed to the basin. "There." Brooks leaned over the map. The last trusted route point and the voice-confirmed marker aligned with her pencil marks, not with the frozen digital trail. "Nash, cross-check Twin Ridge against training map." Nash moved fast. "Confirmed. That puts them approximately 46 miles east-southeast of base, off the predictive line." Ryan looked at Claire's radio key, then at the main wall, then back again. His earlier smile seemed like something from another night. Claire kept her hand on the key. Convoy 3, maintain analog watch. We are bringing you into a stable relay window. Through the static, the voice answered, copy, Raven Point. Silverhawk held. In the quiet that followed, the old metal key rested under Claire's hand. No longer a joke, no longer a museum piece, but the only bridge still standing between a missing convoy and the room that had forgotten how to listen. At 1:11 in the morning, the entire room learned the difference between contact and connection. Contact was a voice breaking through static for a few seconds. Connection was keeping that voice alive long enough to bring people back into the net. Claire Morgan knew the difference, so she did not celebrate when Convoy 3 answered. She tightened the process. Her left hand stayed on the paper map, her right hand hovered near the analog radio key, and her eyes moved between the terrain marks, the old frequency panel, and the analog clock. Commander Ethan Brooks leaned over the map beside her, no longer standing above the method, but inside it. What do you need next? He asked. Claire pointed to the dry wash south of Twin Ridge. Drone relay window in 3 minutes. But do not force them back through the full digital channel yet. Trevor Nash looked up from his console. Why not? Because if the route went dark once, the same shadow can cut them off again. Ryan Cole listened from the analog panel, headset pressed tight to one ear. So we keep them on voice until relay lock is stable. Claire nodded. Short voice. Terrain markers only. No wasted transmission. Brooks turned to the team. You heard her. Nash, prepare relay assist but hold digital takeover until Lieutenant Morgan confirms. Cole, stay on analog receive and repeat only what you hear clearly. Ryan answered, Yes, Commander. The change in his voice was small but real. No sarcasm. No hesitation. Claire transmitted again, steady and brief. Convoy 3, Raven Point. Confirm movement capability and next visible marker. Static pushed back. Then the voice returned, thin but controlled. Raven Point, Convoy 3. Movement capability confirmed. Visual marker. Split rock north face, dry wash running west. Claire marked the point immediately. That is not the main route, Nash said. Brooks looked at him. But it is real. Claire slid the pencil down the map. They corrected around terrain after the dead zone. The predictive trail never saw it. Ryan looked at the frozen green icon still displayed on a secondary screen and turned it off without being told. That small act said more than an apology would have at that moment. The room no longer needed the false comfort. The analog speaker crackled again. Raven Point, signal fading. Claire lowered her voice, though the room was already quiet. Convoy 3, hold position near Split Rock. Maintain analog watch. Relay assist inbound. Brooks glanced at the drone relay timer. 1 minute, 40 seconds. The room waited, but the waiting was different now. Earlier, waiting had meant trusting the system to fix itself. Now it meant listening, checking, comparing, and refusing to let one clean display replace judgment. Claire sent a short Silverhawk pulse, not dramatic, not rushed, just enough to let the convoy know the line was still alive. A double tap came back through the static. Ryan heard it and wrote it down. Claire noticed, but did not comment. Respect was more useful when it turned into discipline. Nash called out, relay window opening. Brooks looked to Claire. She listened for one more analog response, checked the map, then gave a single nod. Bring them in slowly. Nash initiated the relay assist. The main wall hesitated, recalculated, and then rebuilt the convoy position in a new place, 46 miles east-southeast of Raven Point, south of Twin Ridge, exactly where Claire's pencil had already found them. A green contact marker returned, this time earned. Brooks exhaled once. Ryan stared at the map and whispered. The paper was ahead of the satellite. Claire keyed the radio. Convoy 3, Raven Point. Relay contact restored. Continue analog watch until cleared. The answer came back stronger now. Copy, Raven Point. We are with you. For the first time since the signal vanished, the room breathed. But Claire kept the analog key under her hand, because she knew better than anyone that the moment after reconnection was when pride tried to come back. And pride, in a communications room, could be louder than static. By 1:18 in the morning, Convoy 3 had a voice again, a position again, and a thin but stable line back to Raven Point. The room should have relaxed completely. It did not. Claire Morgan kept the analog headset on and the paper map open because she understood that a restored signal was not the same as a solved problem. Commander Ethan Brooks stood beside her at the center table, watching the corrected convoy marker move slowly across the main wall. The old frozen position had been cleared. The predictive trail had been archived for review. In its place, a new route appeared, built from terrain markers, relay confirmation, and the line Claire had drawn by hand before the satellite caught up. Trevor Nash compared the updated digital feed with the pencil marks on the paper map. Their new track matches your estimate within half a mile. Ryan Cole looked at the analog key, then at Claire. You found them before the system admitted they were missing. Claire did not look up. The system admitted it when you stopped asking it to be right. Ryan absorbed that without defending himself. Earlier, he would have turned the line into another joke. Now he wrote it in the margin of the recovery log. Brooks noticed. So did Claire. Convoy 3's voice returned through the speaker, stronger but still rough around the edges. Raven Point, Convoy 3. We have relay assist. Continuing slow movement along West Wash Road. Claire keyed the transmitter. Convoy 3, maintain short interval checks. Confirm every terrain change until full signal stability. Copy. Short interval checks. Brooks stepped closer and lowered his voice. You are keeping them on analog even with relay back. Yes. Because you do not trust the restored channel yet. I trust it more than I did 5 minutes ago. That is not the same as enough. Brooks gave a small nod. It was the first time he did not argue with her caution. Around them, the communications room changed in small ways. Operators who had ignored the old emergency panel now kept glancing toward it. Nash printed the analog time log and placed it beside his digital report. Ryan adjusted the analog receive level carefully, no longer treating the static like trash noise. The room had not become less modern. It had become less arrogant. Brooks looked at Claire's Silver Hawk badge again. That protocol. Silver Hawk. It was built for dead zones. Claire listened through a burst of static before answering. It was built for the moment people still existed, but systems stopped seeing them. Ryan's hand slowed over the controls. Nash looked away from his monitor. The sentence did not accuse anyone, but it found everyone. Brooks looked toward the dark window. Beyond it, the desert did not show the convoy, the ridges, the dry wash, or the radio shadow. The screens had been the room's only eyes, and for almost 15 minutes those eyes had been confident and wrong. Who taught you to hear that rhythm? Brooks asked. Claire's fingers rested lightly on the key. A chief who said static is where careless operators bury living voices. No one spoke after that. The line stayed open. Convoy 3 checked in at the next terrain marker, then the next. Each time, Claire answered with short calm phrases, and Ryan logged every word. When the drone relay finally reached full stability, Nash confirmed 3 independent sources on the corrected location. Convoy marker is stable. Voice channel stable. Analog watch still active. Brooks looked at Claire. Your call. Claire waited for one final pulse through the old headset. It came back clean. She removed one side of the headset from her ear. Now you can trust the screen. Ryan looked at the main display, then at the analog key. Because the people reached it first. Claire gave the smallest nod. In that moment, the room understood the lesson without needing a speech. Technology had not failed because it was modern. It had failed because people had stopped asking what it could not hear. By 1:29 in the morning, the communications room had shifted from emergency recovery into accountability. Convoy 3 was back on stable relay, moving west along the service road under short interval checks, and the corrected route now sat on the main wall beside Claire Morgan's pencil map. The comparison was uncomfortable because it was clear. The digital system had offered a smooth answer when it did not have a real one. The paper map had shown uncertainty, terrain, delay, and truth. Commander Ethan Brooks stood at the center table with the recovery log open, reading the sequence out loud so every operator could hear it. Initial contact lost at 0054. Predictive overlay continued movement until disabled. Analog pulse detected by Lieutenant Morgan at approximately 0058. Convoy reconnected through Silver Hawk emergency frequency at 0109. No one corrected him. No one joked. Petty Officer Ryan Cole sat at the analog panel with his headset still on, writing down each confirmed check-in from the convoy. The same hands that had dismissed the radio key were now treating every faint sound as evidence. Trevor Nash pulled the satellite track beside the analog log and shook his head slightly. The system filled the gap because it expected the route to continue. Claire closed one section of the paper map. Systems like clean stories. Brooks looked at her. And people do too. That is why training matters. The answer landed in the room without accusation, but everyone felt included. Ryan removed one side of his headset. Lieutenant Morgan. Claire looked up. Yes. He took a breath. When I said that thing belonged in a museum, I thought I was making a joke about the equipment. His eyes moved to the dark metal key resting beside the panel. I was really making a joke about knowledge I did not have. Claire did not soften the moment for him. She respected him enough not to. Then learn it. Ryan nodded. Yes, ma'am. Brooks turned to the team. We are updating Raven Point Communications protocol before sunrise. Every convoy drill includes analog receive, paper terrain confirmation, and independent loss of signal review. No predictive overlay stays active after voice contact fails. No operator laughs at a tool before learning what problem it was built to solve. The room answered with quiet acknowledgement. Claire placed the analog key in its small case, then paused before closing it. Brooks noticed. Leave it out, he said. She looked at him. Commander, for the rest of the drill. He looked at the old emergency frequency panel, then the modern wall of screens. And for the next one. That was the moment the room changed for good. Not when the convoy answered. Not when the screen corrected. But when the commander made space for the thing he had failed to respect. The speaker crackled softly. Raven Point, Convoy 3. Relay stable. Continuing inbound training route. Ryan answered this time, careful and clear. Convoy 3, Raven Point copies. Maintain scheduled checks. Silver Hawk watch remains open. Claire listened, then gave a single nod. The words sounded right in his mouth because he finally understood they were not ceremonial. They were a lifeline kept ready. Brooks looked at Claire's Silver Hawk badge, the silver bird cutting through dark blue waves, and the meaning was no longer hidden. It was not decoration. It was memory with discipline attached. Claire lifted her old headset from the panel and set it beside the key. Modern comms are loud, she said quietly. Old signals survive because someone still knows how to listen. Outside Raven Point, the desert remained dark, wide, and indifferent. Inside, the screens kept glowing, but no one mistook glow for truth anymore. At 1:44 in the morning, Convoy 3 completed the final scheduled check before returning fully into Raven Point's communications net. Their voice came through clear now, no longer buried under static. But Claire Morgan still kept the analog channel open until the last terrain marker was confirmed. She did not trust a rescue because it sounded finished. She trusted it when every person, every route node, and every signal agreed without pretending to be perfect. Commander Ethan Brooks stood beside the center table, reviewing the final log with a steadiness that looked different from the confidence he had carried before. Earlier, his authority had leaned on clean screens and fast systems. Now it had learned to leave space for older truths. Convoy 3, Raven Point. Ryan Cole said into the headset, his voice disciplined. Confirm arrival at Western Checkpoint. A clean answer returned. Raven Point, Convoy 3. Western Checkpoint confirmed. Digital channel stable. Analog watch appreciated. Ryan looked toward Claire before answering. Copy, Convoy 3. Raven Point maintains watch until final clearance. Claire gave a small nod. That was enough. Brooks closed the recovery file and looked around the room. Team, listen up. Every operator turned from the monitors. Tonight, a missing convoy was reconnected because Lieutenant Morgan heard what the rest of us dismissed. She used a tool we mocked, a protocol we had neglected, and a discipline we should have protected. The room stayed silent, but not cold. This silence had weight, humility, and attention. Brooks turned fully toward Claire. Lieutenant, I owe you an apology. Claire stood with the analog headset in one hand and the Silver Hawk badge visible on her left sleeve. Commander, the convoy is safe. That matters more. It matters most, Brooks said. But it does not erase what happened before it. He looked toward Ryan, then the other operators. I allowed this room to treat preparation like embarrassment because it did not look modern. That was my failure. Ryan stood from the analog panel. Mine too, ma'am. His voice did not shake, but it carried the bruise of learning. I called it old because I did not know what it had survived. Claire looked at him for a long second. Now you do. Yes, ma'am. Then keep it alive. Ryan nodded. Nash placed the printed analog log beside the digital report, aligning both records on the center table. Brooks picked up the dark metal radio key, not casually this time, but carefully, as if weight could change once a room understood history. He set it beside the main communications console, not hidden near the side wall, not treated as backup clutter. This stays visible. Claire did not object. Outside, the Nevada desert remained dark beyond the reinforced glass, wide enough to swallow signals and patient enough to expose pride. Inside, Raven Point's screens glowed steady green, but no one looked at them the same way. The analog panel stayed active. The paper map remained unfolded. The old headset rested beside the key like a witness. Claire gathered her notebook and folded the map along its pencil lines. As she moved toward the door, Brooks called after her. "Lieutenant Morgan." She stopped. "Yes, Commander." "What should the first line of the new communications drill be?" Claire glanced back at the room, at the operators, at the screens, at the radio key that had been laughed at and then listened to. "Before you trust the signal," she said, "ask what silence is trying to say." Brooks repeated it once, quietly, as if committing it to memory. Claire stepped into the hallway, her Silver Hawk badge catching the last blue light before the door closed behind her. The room remained modern. The satellites remained useful. The encrypted channels stayed online. But from that night forward, every Raven Point convoy drill began with one old key on the main console, one paper map beside the digital screen, and one lesson written where no operator could miss it. Fast systems find what is visible. Patient systems find what refuses to vanish.